there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love to talk to creative people about what they do, why they do it, how they hang in there through all the ups and downs. And today my guest is a filmmaker named Billy Luther. He's the writer and director of a movie called Frybread Face and Me. It's a delightful coming-of-age story set on the Navajo Indian Reservation in northern Arizona, near where I grew up. I love the movie. It's funny, it's charming, it's got heart, and I was really excited to talk to Billy. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that this podcast, Dennis Anyone, is brought to you by Calgon. Calgon, no, it's not. I don't have any sponsors. It's just me. I do it because I love it. But you can support it in two ways. You can go to DennisAnyone.net and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar, help me cover my expenses. Or I would love it if you considered becoming a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of shows under the DNR banner, and for a monthly fee, you get my show early and you get all these other great shows. So you can learn about that at dnrstudios.com. All right, enough of the plugs. Here now is the interview with Billy Luther. Joining me now from Los Angeles, it's filmmaker Billy Luther. His movie is Frybread Face and Me, and it's a delight. So congratulations. So how would you describe this movie to someone that knows nothing about it?
Frybread Face and Me is a coming-of-age story set on the Navajo Nation. And, this 11-year-old kid who grows up in San Diego, he's an urban Indian, I guess you could say, is dropped off for maybe one of his first times on the Navajo Res. And it's kind of like a fish out of water story set in 1990. And he meets his cousin, Frybread Face, and she's completely traditional. So it's two worlds colliding. And they're both, having stuck there for the summer on their grandmother's ranch.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we ever saw the food fry bread in the movie, do we? Because I grew up eating it, and I was like, I can't wait to see that fry bread.
Yeah, you're right. You don't. And
so delicious.
I know.
It's probably has a million calories. Calories.
Yeah, those, fry bread isn't a traditional food. Fry bread is, was kind of, was our rations that we had. Most natives, we were given flour, lard, and we just had to come up with something. So it's not a traditional food. It's more of like a contemporary, piece of food that we made something out of it.
Well, it's delicious. So you had an experience similar to what happens in the movie. Can you talk a little bit about your experience or how much of you is in this movie in terms of what happens?
Yeah, the best thing about this film, and I think the story that I tell was really kind of diving deep into my personal experience and memory. I remember being 11 and trying to figure out who I was. And especially being in the 90s, I played with G.I Joe dolls and played soap opera with them. And
yeah, it's very cute. Those scenes are so cute. I related so much because I wanted to play with my sister's Barbies, but I knew it was shameful. I knew it was bad. So I couldn't. I didn't. It's weird, the messages we get. But yeah, I related to the action figure soap opera milieu.
Yeah, you're hiding it, right? You're hiding it. And you're playing war when somebody walks in the door. Yeah, I feel, this is kind of, semi-autobiographical. It's not 100% my story. Of course, I had to create conflict and drama, as a screenplay, as a script. So I had fun playing with it. And it just really kind of, I had to, like I said, I had to go into my family's kind of history. And I realized, now that I'm on this festival tour, it resonates with natives a lot and non-natives too,
It seems like the kind of experience that when you look back, you appreciate it. But do you remember appreciating it at the time, maybe at the end of the summer, or was it like later where you came to take it more into your heart, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. As you're growing up and you're that age, 11, you're just questioning a lot. And I remember the uncomfortable feeling that I had at times, wanting to be who I was, but also exploring myself in different ways. And then, I just, as you grow older, things start to make sense. You understand more and more about family dynamics and, the history that the older, your aunts and uncles had, your parents had. So I think, being in my 40s now, I'm starting to understand, and also having kids really kind of brought me, to that kind of realization. And in the film also, Benny understands. He's looking back. It's narrated a bit by older Benny, and just kind of exploring this world of looking back. And I think that there's so many great films that do that, and Stand By Me sticks out. That you kind of look back in your childhood, and as you grow older, things start to make sense.
Now that's you doing the voiceover as the older Benny, is that right?
Yes, it is. We cast somebody to do the VO, and it didn't quite feel right. There wasn't an emphasis on certain situations and memories that I really wanted, and so a lot of what you hear in the film was scratch recording that I went in and just said, hey, let's try this. And I think it works.
It does work, actually. It really connects it. And what did it feel like to do that and to see it with your voice?
Yeah, it's really strange, it's weird because I lived, most of the story, gives an audience on the big screen. And I think that, watching it in a theater with an audience was really kind of life-changing for me. It felt like a release. And, the story is so personal. There's also my home movies in the film too, that bookend the story.
Yeah.
So and I think that's what a lot of my, my background's in documentary. And I think I just brought some of those, elements into this film.
Making the transition from documentary to narrative, what did you love about narrative? What were you like, I'm into this?
Yeah, with documentaries, you kind of go with the flow. You just follow your subject and you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think, I always liked the story structure. I started out as writing and kind of fell into documentary, so it wasn't planned. But I just like the beginning, middle, and ends of stories and screenwriting. But the transition was pretty, easy. It was seamless, I should say. Being on set, we were a very low budget film, so I understood that in documentaries are,
yeah,
really
you're used
budget.
to that.
Yeah, and then also too with Grandma, the grandmother was a non-actor. All of them were non-actors, but specifically grandmother in the film. Following her like as a documentary, being a fly on the wall. So as you watch the film, you'll see this kind of, we're immersed in her world and we're following her. And I just, told my camera crew, let's follow her almost like a documentary. And I think those scenes really come out and stick with you.
The connection between Benny and the grandmother is so beautiful, and they don't speak the same language, but they have a connection. Is that something you felt as well when you spent time with your grandmother?
Yeah, speaking Navajo, I'm 3 tribes. I'm Navajo, Hopi, and the Guna Pueblo. So my mother is full Navajo and my father is Hopi and the Guna. So I didn't have that, that experience of having the Navajo in my house, in San Diego. But I would go back to the reservation and not be able to communicate verbally with my grandmother. So there was always somebody there, my aunts and uncles, translating for me. And that, carried on until, the end of her life. And, even though we didn't have a spoken connection and relationship like that, it was very physical. And, there was just so much love that, words, Navajo or English couldn't, translate. So I felt that I really wanted to connect that in the film. And, Benny leaves a much stronger person because he had that summer and experienced her love, even though they didn't have the verbal connection.
And her wisdom. It was something very wise. It felt like she knew how to live, knew how to be in the world. The weaving was beautiful. She just has this presence that's really special. Speaking of, the kids are amazing. You have the 2 kids that play Benny and Frybread Face. They're so special. How did you find them? And were you worried that if you didn't find the right kids, you wouldn't be able to pull it off?
Yeah, that's always, a worry when you're casting. You're like, gosh, I wrote this character and they probably won't bring it, We had a wonderful casting director, Angelique Midthunder, and she cast Reservation Dogs. And she, was able to find these two kids. And, because she's worked with a lot of Native kids, casting, and she's seen a lot of auditions come her way. So she sent me, the Charlie Hogan's tape, who plays Frybread, and it was her. We just knew it was her. She had this confidence about her, and we were like, say no more. We're, let's not really look anymore, because we're going to spend energy finding, who's going to play Benny.
Right.
And there was something really special about Keir. Keir was at this age where he was still figuring himself out in a really cool way that really connected me to him. And, he was quiet, shy, and was raised by a single mom. And it just really, it was him, Benny was him. And even though I wrote the character specifically, I let the two, Benny and Fry really take the role and see what they did with it. And it was beyond my expectations. It was almost better than what I wrote.
I love the scene where they're dancing. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like to shoot?
Oh, when the kids dance, that was a memory that I had. My grandmother's skirts would be, on the line, drying after she washed. And I remember my cousin and I just went out and just took them off the line and just started dancing in them. And yeah, it was just this freedom. And there was like I said, there was no judgment with my cousin or my grandmother. And it was just a fun time of innocence. And I think that scene, resonates with so many. And that's, they love that scene. It's memorable.
I love the pop culture touchstones in the movie. Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. I take it you're a fan?
I am, but I wasn't as obsessed as Benny was.
He's really into it.
Yeah, I just really wanted something that, Benny, has this connection to this band. And I love the fact that, Stevie Nicks is, considered by some, a witch. So it was just fun to play with that. And then also Starman. Starman makes a cameo too. And that was a film that I watched over and over. And just little things that you put in that, this makes it grounded and feel authentic.
When I was growing up in northern Arizona, they shot Starman near my town. So it was all the buzz for a while. Like, it was like, they're shooting Starman. Are they going to use our house? Are they like, what's happening? Did you see the movie stars? Like, it was a big deal when Starman came to town when I was in high school. So when I saw that was like the one VHS they had in the house, I was like, that makes sense. It resonates for me. Well,
I didn't tell you. I was born and I also graduated high school in Winslow, Arizona. And that is where Starman was filmed.
Yes, I remember.
So we're neighbors.
Holbrook was a little jealous of Winslow. Also, there's a shot of Winslow in the movie, but I understand you shot in New Mexico. This is very inside Arizona baseball for me. But did you shoot in Winslow, or did you cheat that and make New Mexico look like Winslow?
Yeah, we did cheat it. We just had that drive-by of, and that shot was done when we were location scouting. So it made it in the final film. But we filmed everything in New Mexico, and we found the trading post that was going to be Winslow. And yeah, you just kind of make things up as you go when you're filming. And like I said, we didn't film in the Navajo, reservation. So we had to make something up in the middle of nowhere to make it look like the res. So yeah, lots of things in there are filmed not in the place that you think they were.
Yeah, well, it felt real to me, and I grew up in that area. The thing I miss most about Arizona is the skies. I love the sky. Do you relate to that? Is that something you connect to, or is that just my thing?
Well, in the film, there's this beautiful shot in Arizona of Flagstaff, the mountain, which was one of our sacred mountains in Navajo culture. And it was a sunset, and it was just really beautiful. And I wanted to include that in the film just because also I grew up in Winslow, and that was the view I saw, growing up. So yeah, the sky in Arizona is just so unique. My grandmother lives in northern Arizona, like north, like by Kayenta. Yeah. And the sunsets, the sunrise are just incredible up there. And yeah, I miss it.
I used to do like speech and drama tournaments against Winslow. Were you ever in that world? Did you do like choir or acting or any of that stuff?
I was class president. I was going 2 years in a row, junior.
There you were.
That was
well
it.
done.
Yeah. I know.
You ruled the school.
I ruled the school, and yeah, I loved it. I loved ruling the school.
Yeah. There's another character in your movie, Aunt Lucy, that I love, played by a wonderful actress. And she sort of sees Benny for who Benny is and sort of gives him a lot of like grace. Did you have something like that in your life? Talk to me about Lucy.
Yeah. Well, first off, Kahara Hodges, who plays Lucy, this is her first role, and I thought she just killed it. She's
gorgeous too. The camera gorgeous. Loves her. She's fabulous.
Yeah. And that was how I looked up to my aunties. You know, my aunties were just beautiful women, and I just wanted the kids to really kind of fall in love with this character, their aunt. And she was perfect. She was perfect for the role, and she just brings this love and gentleness to the kids, no judgment, and supportive, and really loves them. And I really I lucked out with finding someone so beautiful inside and out, and she rocks that role.
As a documentarian coming into this world, were there times when you're like, oh, I get to go talk to the actors? Did you ever have to remind yourself like, oh, I don't just observe. I am a part of this, or was that a natural switch and you got on board with it?
Yeah, it was natural. You know, in documentaries, you know, you wish something would happen, and you're like, oh, right. Maybe this isn't going to happen. And so you have no really control over it.
Right.
But with film, you know, sometimes a mistake would be great, and it ended up in the film. But yeah, just, you know, first time actors, Martin Sensmeyer, who plays Uncle Marvin, you know, he's been in many roles. And I wanted to give him something, you know, really different than he's played in the past. So he was great. And he really helped the kids, you know, in their performances, in their scenes. And yeah, they really trusted him, the kids. And I really loved that energy that they brought. So yeah, the kids just, you know, went with it. And I went along with them, kind of like a documentary. But, you know, I didn't, you know, force them to do anything really. It was just pure, you know, innocence and bam.
I love it. I love that there's Wranglers in this movie, Wrangler jeans, because that's a thing from my childhood. I remember, like, the men are in Wranglers, which is a very specific silhouette. You got to love it.
Costume department, I tell you, we had Navajos in every department: camera, art department, wardrobe, hair and makeup. People knew this world. You know, these are the crew that knew this world. So we didn't really have to try hard, because we knew what this world looked like and at this time, this era. So it just became a really natural thing that, you know, pops up on screen. And I think people are looking at certain things in the film and going, oh yeah, I remember that, you know, so it's pretty cool.
There's a Cabbage Patch doll in it, or a semi-Cabbage Patch doll. But I remember also when that was the craze, and I had to go hunt all over town to get Cabbage Patch dolls for my nieces. Where did that idea come from as being part of the movie?
Yeah, I wanted one so bad when I was little. I you know, they were ripped off the shelves, and, you know, my mother was always like, you know, we can't get one, not because, you know, for, you know, baby and a boy, but just because it was expensive, you know. And we couldn't find them on the shelves anyways.
You couldn't get them. You really were like running all over. Yeah.
Right. We didn't have Amazon back there, so you had to go to the store and rip them off and fight. But my mom, you know, she knew how much I wanted one, so she sewed a body. She found this kind of like this simplicity pattern for, you know, making dolls, and she made one, and you know, she bought a head, I guess, at the sewing, you know, store. She found this head, and so she was able to make a pretty cool doll for me.
And you loved it.
I loved it, but the head kept falling off, and my brother would get, you know, mad at me, and he would rip it off and throw it across the room, hide it. So that trauma turned into something funny later in my life. So I just used it in the film.
It's very funny in the film, that recurring theme, for sure. There's some really interesting people involved behind the scenes. Taika Waititi is one of the producers, and I understand you guys go way back. Is that right?
Taika and I go back about 20 years. You know, we met at Sundance, the Sundance Film Festival. And he just, you know, we were just trying to make our films at the time. And, you know, and now here we are, you know, 20 years later working. But he's been a friend, like I said, and, you know, it's kind of hard when you have friends who've, you know, who are pretty successful, and you're like, here, can you read my script?
Yeah, they're winning Oscars and stuff.
Yeah. So he took the time, read it, and he was, you know, able to come on board, and his support meant everything. And it just brought, shed a light onto this project in early development. And, it's just really, really great. And, he just, read the script, gave notes, and watched the cut, gave notes. So it's kind of a pretty easy job to be an EP.
Yeah. Does he seem like the same guy he was when you met him?
Always. He's always, how I met him was I was volunteering at Sundance Film Festival, and he had a short film there. Right. And we had the same Nokia phones, and he asked if he can borrow my charger. And I didn't think I was going to get it back, but, I let him, borrow it. And a couple hours later, he brought it back, and he was like, "What are you doing tonight?" So that's how we, formed our relationship and brotherhood, and our families, know each other. Our kids, are really close. And so if I have any advice for any aspiring filmmaker is if anybody asks for a phone charger, let them borrow it.
Let them borrow your phone charger. That's very cool. And you're involved with Ava DuVernay's company as well. They're putting this out. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty shocking that I have Ava and Taika, supporting this
the
film.
Coolest people in the industry.
Right. No, Ava has a distribution company, Array. Right. And they acquired after Toronto Film Festival, and they're putting it limited release November 24th, the day after Turkey Day, and it's going to also be on Netflix that same day. So it's exciting. Get to take the world out and into the U.S. and see what happens. I think people are really responding to it. The trailer just released yesterday, and it's been shared thousands of times. So it's exciting. It's exciting. November 24th, Netflix.
There it is. What's it been like to show the film to audiences? I'm sure, have people in your family seen it? People on the reservation? Like, what has it been like to share the film?
The response I've gotten from my family has been pretty positive. They just, it's as a young age, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. So to have have me, present a film that, is about kind of family, and, it hit them, and they saw a lot of, their story up on the screen just as much as mine. So I think it's healing. I think it's a very healing process because, there's trauma in your family in different ways. And I think this film was very healing and cathartic, and it just, brought, I think, my parents and I closer. And the non-native audience, what I've been going around with the festival screenings, it's just been pretty great. I mean, people see different things, even if they're non-native, in the film and the story that connects with them. And that's pretty cool to have that connection with, an audience that's native and non-native.
Are there specific reactions that you remember from screenings, individuals that came up to you?
Yeah, one of the memorable times that I had was at South by Southwest. There was a Native woman who came up to me, and she was on the verge of tears, just saying, "We didn't have this growing up. We didn't have this representation growing up," and especially something with humor, And she was just touched, and she said, "This is gonna be life-changing for some kid on the res or off the res, from some Native kid that's going to see themselves and felt, they're just going to see themselves." And that connected with me because growing up, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to be a filmmaker, was because I didn't see the representation on screen, on the big screen or on television. So that wasn't my intention going in to making this film, but, seeing the response and hearing those stories really connect. And I'm so proud to, have this come out next week and having a younger audience, younger generation see themselves.
I saw that you had gone through the Sundance workshop with this script and this film. Is that right?
Yeah, the Sundance Labs, Sundance Institute has a writer's screenwriting lab and a director's lab. And I did all those during the pandemic. So it was all done on Zoom. It
was all Zoom, because I always thought
Zoom.
You would go to Redford's house and you're up in the mountains. No, it's not. It wasn't that.
That was supposed to happen. But we got the short end of the stick, our class of 2020. And so all of us had to do it on Zoom. And the great thing about that was there was about 10 of us during those labs. And Nikiyatu Jitsu did Nanny, which has been on was released in 2021, and also Charlotte Wells did. She did that film. I already forgot. But anyhow, there were some really great people in that, and we just connected because we were cut off from the outside world. We're all living in our homes, and we just workshopped and I think that really helped. We were focused. We weren't out and about. Everyone was locked in at home, so we really had time to develop our stories. And I just spent a year working on my script, and here we are.
Well, also going through something like that kind of bonds you, and you can follow each other throughout your careers and help each other. And it's like kind of having this shared experience that you can build on. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Those are the great experiences that you go through in workshopping your film and developing it. I think that was something that was new to me just in terms of, working in documentaries. You do research in your documentaries and then you try to prepare as much as you can, but you don't necessarily know how your film usually is going to end, your docs. But this one, I workshopped it, but I knew my ending, when I started writing, and I just kind of worked backwards in the story. And that, like I said, I think that just, was why I wanted to go into writing, because I love the process. I love being challenged. And, the story just flowed out of me.
The kids talk about Shamu, the whale at SeaWorld that was such a celebrity during that period of time. Like it really captured, everyone was talking about Shamu, wanted to meet Shamu or see Shamu. Did you do that? Did you go to SeaWorld and see Shamu?
Yeah, we had annual passes, and we would go there almost every weekend. My friends, that was just kind of our playground. Our parents would just drop us off, and it was a different time period, and I would never do that with my kids, drop them off at an amusement park. But I went many times and never met Shamu, but I just saw the show, hundreds and hundreds of times.
Did you keep any favorite souvenirs from the shoot?
No, you know why? Because they're all my parents' storage. A lot of those.
That was all your stuff anyway.
Yeah, the G.I. Joes were the actual G.I. Joes that I played with as a kid. So we just went in and dove into my parents' storage, and just
boom, there you are. That's your prop department.
Yep,
I love that. Why do you make movies? Why does it call to you? I would not do anything else. This is what I wanted to do from an early age. I'm not, trying to put this down, but I just didn't want to work, 9-to-5 job, behind a desk. I just thought, I wanted to do something creative, artful. And I thank God, knock on wood, I've not had a 9-to-5 job in terms of behind a desk. I waited a lot of tables, you do that as an artist. But like I said, I'm not trying to put that kind of job down, but I just knew that I wanted to create and write. And now I'm getting paid for it. It took a long time. But you made it. Like, what kept you going during your slower times? What kept you believing? I don't know. I just watched a lot of movies, and I just get inspired by other people's art. And I just knew I had a story to tell. I would see something that would blow me away, and then I'd be like, oh my God, I want it. So I just kept going, and I just never gave up. It's just something I wanted to do. And you just never give up. I just had this clear focus of what my world was going to be like. But I just, now I'm, working, and I love the place I'm in, and I'm working for TV as well. I write and direct for a show called Dark Winds. It's on AMC. Yeah, I saw that. How has that been? Yeah. What's that been like?
Cool. Yeah, it's been great. We're going into our third season, and we're really, the show is based on this Tony Hillerman novels. So it's been pretty cool because, our writer's room has a lot of native. First season it was all native writer's room, and that's pretty rare. I think the only television show that had that was Reservation Dogs.
Right.
So I just love it. I love throwing ideas, and I get paid for it. We're 6 of us in a room Monday through Friday, and we just throw ideas out, and you make believe. And that's just, it's so cool that, I do that.
Are you guys in person now, or are you still doing stuff over Zoom?
We're doing stuff over Zoom just because of the strike. We didn't know when the strike was going to end, the writer's strike. So when the strike ended, we were just right back into it. So we're going to be right now to the end of the year, we're on Zoom, but in January, we're going to be in person. So that is going to be interesting because it's going to be my first time. All my television experience has been through Zoom because of the pandemic, but now we're going to be in person. So I can't be texting now during the Zoom rooms now.
Yeah, but they get to order lunches from places. That's always fun.
Yeah,
the menu goes
that's
around.
Always great. Yeah, always order the salad. Always order the salad. Yeah.
That's why you're successful. You always order the salad.
Right.
That's a good rule. I grew up in Holbrook near Winslow, and then we had the Roxy Theater, and I have so many memories of going to the movies there. There was a Winslow Theater, right? Where did you go to the movies?
Yeah. Winslow had a theater, but I remember going to the Holbrook Theater and seeing Young Guns. And
Young Guns at the Holbrook Theater, the Roxy Theater.
Yeah.
I still, whenever I go visit, if it's open, I go to the movies, and boy, it's not the ArcLight. But you know what? It really captured my imagination when I was a kid. I loved going, even though my parents never wanted to go. I never saw a single movie with my family. What did your family think of your pursuits, your wanting to do this?
Well, the funny thing is, I told them at a very early age I wanted to go into, filmmaking, and they never heard of, a Native American director or writer, so it was just like, okay. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't supportive. They were like, okay, but here's, an application, because my parents both worked for the railroad Santa Fe at the time, right? You know that. And, they handed me, applications and said, hey, you should try it. Cause my family's, all go, my grandmother worked on the Laguna side worked for the Santa Fe. But it's just something I didn't want to do. I just wanted to pursue it. So after I graduated from Winslow, I moved to Chicago and started film school. And then they started kind of getting, oh, he's serious about this. And I guess Miss Navajo, which, came out in 2007, changed their mind, because it was like, oh, you're premiering at the Sundance Film Festival. So it was pretty cool to show them, that all my hard work, all their money that went into film school paid off.
Yeah, it's all happening. And now you're making these other movies. It's amazing.
Right.
When you look back on the experience of making and sharing Frybread Face and Me with the world, what's one memory that you'll always remember? There's a couple, but there was this moment that I remember was, we were running and gunning a few times, and It was, we were filming in New Mexico. I didn't know we were going to be filming during the monsoon season, and their monsoon season is during the summer. And there was no light. There was no, sun, and, it'd been cloudy all day. And then the clouds started to part, and, the sun, as it was going down, was peaking. And that's when we just grabbed the camera and the crew. We were filming something, or we're setting up for something. We just ran, and there's a scene where Grandma is washing Benny's hair. And that moment and the lighting of that is just so special. And it just brought me back to what my grandmother would do when I would come and visit her for the, it just was really special. And it wasn't really any acting, grandmother was just telling him, a story, and it was just so special. So whenever I see that scene, I just kind of get goosebumps, because I just remember what it took to get that moment, and that moment of grace where you felt like, oh, it all came together after all.
Right.
And Benny has that long hair. Did you have long hair when you were a kid?
When I was younger, I think when I turned 2 or 3, they cut, I just never, I have a cowlick, so, maybe I should grow it out, but, I didn't.
I related to him because there's a moment where somebody's like, are you a little boy? Are you a little girl? Like there's some gender, questions around him. And I had that when I was a kid. For a period of time, I would get asked, are you a little boy or a little girl? I'm sure I was, my mannerisms. And it just really took me back to that moment. Because as a kid, you don't know, you're so innocent. You're so naive. And I remember this guy at a carnival asking me that, and how horrible it felt. I'm not sure why. Like, I don't know. So those moments, that aspect of the story, I really related to. And why was that important for you to include?
Well, that's part of me. That was my experience. And, you know, I don't hit people over the head with the gender theme that's in the film. I think it comes off on screen without telling or talking about it. And it was really an experience that I had. And, you know, I really wanted to show kind of the love and support that I had with the women in my life, my grandmother, my aunts, and my mother. And, you know, I just naturally, it just, you know, came out when I was writing the story. And I just remember being asked those questions, not just from, you know, my uncles, but, you know, at school, you know, in public. And yeah, those moments just stick with you, you know, and I just felt that I needed to tell that story, that part of the story, and, you know, Benny's experience. And I think it works in terms of going deeper into who he is. Yeah.
And also the grace of the women around him that let him be who he is. And I think that's really touching. That really moved me a lot. You're on Netflix. What does it mean to be on Netflix? Like the Netflix of it all. Do they send you like gift baskets? Because as an entertainment writer, I get a box every day from Netflix, and I'm like, oh man, with just some, they're just like promotional materials. But let's just say they spare no expense. But it's nice, right?
Hopefully next week. But you know, I don't, you know, I haven't yet. But it's one of those. I can't tell you how blessed I am and fortunate to have this film be on Netflix. It's because of Ava, you know, and Array, and it's just this is home for it. So I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Yeah, just so many people at the same time all around the world. How did you connect with Ava, and what have your interactions been like with her? She's impressive. I think I would be intimidated.
I've known Ava for a few years. I don't know her in terms of like I can sit here have coffee with her, but her, you know, Array is a distribution company that kind of like finds, you know, films and smaller films and brings them to, you know, a broader audience like Netflix. So, we just, as we were, you know, making the festival rounds, you know, they got a hold of it and, they wanted it. So it was pretty surprising but also exciting.
Well, it's going to be fun over Thanksgiving weekend, knowing that so many people are watching your movie all over. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. It's fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks again to Billy Luther. Check out his movie, Frybread Face and Me, in select theaters and on Netflix. All right. So this happened. I went to Palm Springs a couple weeks back for a special screening of a short film that I worked on with Nadia Ginsburg and Glenn Gaylord called If We Took a Holiday. It's Madonna themed, which is very of the moment. We made it about 10 years ago, and it was part of a lineup of shorts called Do These Shorts Make Me Look Gay? It was done through a pair of guys called the Filmmakers Gallery. Paul and Steven have this organization called the Filmmakers Gallery, and they show cool stuff by LGBTQ people, or maybe everybody. They just show fun stuff. And so I went, and it was really fun to be there. The other filmmakers were really cool. Craig Chester was on the panel. Cameron Thrower, who I also know, Emrys Cooper. It was fun. And it was wild to see the movie on the big screen. I hadn't looked at it. We made it 10 years ago, so it had been a while. But I think what really struck me was all the friends that helped. Like, oh, there's so-and-so in the background. Oh, Brett let us use his car. Oh, Brett let us use his house. Oh, there's my friend Thang. Oh, there's Zayd as the DJ. Like, it was just all of these people who were still in my life showing up to help out and to help us make this thing. That was really touching about it. And there was a moment at the Q&A that I'm really proud of. I don't know why it feels so evocative or meaningful, but I'm gonna spell it out for you. It's dumb, but memorable. So after the Q&A, Terry Ray did the little Q&A afterwards, and there was a question from the audience. Did any of us have to deal with COVID restrictions while we were shooting? And Cameron Thrower, who has the most recent film, I think, said that they actually shot their movie after COVID, so it wasn't really a big deal. More recently. I mean, not totally after COVID. It's still out there, but it wasn't a huge issue for them. And then Craig Chester, he shot the movie, I think it's called Call Your Father, something like that. It's so good. He's so good in it. Anyway, he made a joke. He was like, something like, a number of our people had to deal with the Spanish flu or something he made. It was funny. And I literally reached over to him and grabbed the mic. I didn't have a mic in my hand. And I pulled it up to my mouth and I said, and a couple people on our crew got boogie fever. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. It's so dumb. It's like a reference to a 70s disco song. Well, luckily the audience there was old enough to get it. But there was just something I remember thinking, I am going to reach over and take that mic and I'm going to say this thing about boogie fever to this room of strangers who I can't see because the lights are blinding. And I'm just going to, it's either going to land or it's not, but I'm really determined to say the boogie fever joke. And then Greg teased me. He's like, you reached all the way over here for the mic for that. Anyway, it's a moment that will tickle me forever. I don't know. It says something deep about me that I needed to do that. But it was a fun time. And we appreciate being invited to be part of it. So there's that. And the movie's still on YouTube if you want to check it out, if you never have seen it. It's called If We Took a Holiday. I'm really proud of it. Nadia's amazing in it. And it was just people always say it's a labor of love, but it was. So there's that. All right, before I let you go, I want to mention YouDon'tKnowMyLife.com. That's my side business, the virtual game nights that I host. Also, it's a box game. You can buy it on Amazon. Perfect for the holidays. You Don't Know My Life. So you can check that out. Also, I interview people about their lives, like a podcast, as another side business. It's called Lifecast. And if you've got older parents and you want to get their story down, we can do it over Zoom these days. It's an easy, painless, pleasurable way. People actually really enjoy it. And I find it really meaningful. So you can learn about that at getalifecast.com. All right. Thanks also to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.